So welcome, everyone. This is searching in all the right places and some that you never expected. We're going to cover a lot of material, but one thing we are not covering today is Google Maps and Google Earth because we have a separate class for that. So Tim and I have, we're going to share the approach he's going to take. He's going to take the practical, useful things, and I'm going to give you information about the esoteric, crazy things, because that's where I like to go. So you ready, Tim?
Sure.
All right. Okay, so the first thing when you are researching is starting with your question. Do you need a specific piece of information? Are you looking for a name, an address, something very, very specific? Or are you just wanting to learn about generally about a website? It's important for you to define your question very carefully, recognize what assumptions you might be making. Be willing to go back to that question as you start to get information and perhaps edit it a little bit. And in fact, one of the senior research scientists for Google actually writes his questions down so that he can come back to them as he starts to collect information. If you define your question carefully, you can recognize, for example, assumptions, as I mentioned. Like if you started with, I want to learn about the oil discovery in California. Well, that could be Native American or it could be commercial. And you perhaps have not thought that through. So consider writing it down. It will help you identify keywords that you can search on and keep you from going down a rabbit hole. So, Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's slightly covered on the next slide, but you did a very good job on that.
Okay. And take it, go ahead.
All right, so sometimes you'll hear stuff, for example, that if you're searching for airplane tickets, that every time you visit a site, you're being tracked and that the airline will increase the prices for you. While I've tested that and I can't find any example of that, you can always try it yourself. So basically what you do is you would open up a browser, you would open up a private browsing window. What the private browsing window does is it basically takes all the information that Google or any other search provider or the airline has stored about you and pretends like it doesn't exist. So you start with a fresh slate. And the reason why this happens again is because you essentially have a profile. Where this is incredibly obvious is in politics. So if you are a diehard Bernie Sanders fan and you search for a political news article, you're going to get very different news articles or very different opinions on the news articles than if you were a hardcore Republican, for example. So it's very important that we, as good citizens of this country, try and get information from multiple sources, in my opinion. And if you stay logged in and don't try private browsing for searching for news articles, for example, you're really only going to get one side of any issue. And the reason for this is Google wants clicks. Any search provider wants clicks. Clicks mean money. So they have figured out what you are most likely to click on. And in general, people are most likely to click on things that will support what they want to believe. So you will be more likely, if you really like Bernie Sanders, you're going to be more likely to click on an article that's very pro-liberal ideology and very anti-conservative ideology. And again, politics is just probably one of the bigger divides we have in the country, so it's a very easy example to use. but this happens with everything. So if you are, for example, if you really like Home Depot and Google knows that you buy things at Home Depot and you search for a new tool, so like you search for a circular saw or something of that nature, Google is more likely to give you a result that ends with you buying it at Home Depot than a result that would end with you buying it at Lowe's, for example. We have one question in the chat of how to open a private browser window. We'll go over that in a little bit. On Windows computers, it's Control-Shift-P if you're in Firefox, but we'll show you where to go in the drop-down menu. So if we don't, just remind us, but we'll do a section where we actually go through some searches, so we can show you how to do that then.
Great. Okay, so there's strategies. We all have very different strategies. Oops, there we go. Tim, you want to share your strategy for when you start a search?
Yeah, so you will find various different people espousing various different opinions on how to search. The answer for me is basically against the best advice of everyone that's out there. But I want to stress that the best way to search is the way that search works best for you. So me, I really like to do general search statements, look at the results, try and figure out if they answer my question. And if they don't, then I'll narrow it down. So for example, if I'm searching for articles on the largest like cryptocurrency scams of the last year, I would do cryptocurrency scam 2020. And then I would look at those results. If those results gave me the information I wanted or the information I was looking for, then perfect. But if I didn't find the results, that's when I would do less general statements and kind of drill down and use some of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit in order to find a more specific answer to my question.
That's great. And I teeter back and forth between broad search terms and narrow search terms. I'm looking for information, but I'm also looking for reliable sites and possible new keywords that I might not have thought of and put in my question. I also, when I type something, I'm aware of the dangers of autocompletion, but I pay attention to what that's telling me. Because that can be interesting information. And when I evaluate my find, if you see a lot of the same phrase in search results, you need to be very alert to whether that doesn't mean that it has more weight than another result, because it could be that those sites are just using the same phrase without attribution. And in that case, I will take that phrase, put it in quotation marks, and Tim will show you that later, and see how many sites come up with that phrase. And that tells me something about the quality of the results that I've gotten. It's a lot of fun to go back and forth and once Tim shows you some of the tools that you can use, it's pretty intriguing to do a lot of good search. So your search strategy could be like Tim's or like mine, or just completely different. And it also, I think to some extent, Tim, wouldn't you say it has to do with what you're looking for, whether you're looking for something general or something very specific?
Oh, definitely. You would, and that's kind of why I like starting with general, is it requires very little thought. I can very quickly see a lot of answers or a lot of results. And then from there, I can figure out, what direction I want to go, because some things will require different search terms than others, which I think is either 1 or 2 slides from now.
And the other thing that I was thinking about with strategies, which has completely gone out of my head, so perhaps it will come back anyway. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so Tim's going to take you through a lot of the search tools.
All right, so definitely feel free to look back at this slide to kind of do a refresher, so you don't need to write anything down necessarily. But on the left-hand side of this screen, we have what's called a cheat sheet, which I blatantly stole from some online person. And the reason why I stole this one is I kind of liked that, if you can see it on your screen, on the left-hand side, advanced. So under that heading, it gives you the command that you put in. In the middle, it explains what you can do with it. And on the right-hand side, it gives you an example, which I think is way more useful than just seeing, you know, what the actual command is. So probably the most general command is, or the one that I use the most personally, is the quotation marks. So if you put a word or phrase in quotation marks, that tells Google that 100% you want this phrase or this word in the result. What Google will do is it will try and contextualize what you write down into the search bar, and then it will find results based on what it thinks you want, which will sometimes take out certain words from the end result. So by putting certain words in quotes, that means that Google will always show results with those words in it. This is a very easy way to drastically reduce the amount of content you receive in your search result. The next one that I find very useful is the minus sign. So that's the hyphen. And this is really useful. And my favorite example of it is if you're searching for Jaguar information, it could mean the big cat, or it could mean the car. So what you can do is if you want to know the top speed of a Jaguar, the cat, you can type in top speed Jaguar and then minus car. And then that would give you results that fit all that criteria at the beginning. So what's the fastest speed of a Jaguar? And it will exclude any results that mention the word car. So theoretically, now you're getting results that give you the top speed of the cat and not the top speed of the car. And again, you can definitely go through afterwards and look at all of these different things. I personally find that some of the ones like cite, file type, define, and in title, they're not incredibly useful for me, but they might be for you. So for example, the cite option will only give you results from a certain site. So if you want to look up a news article and you want to only look at news articles from CNN, you can do cite CNN.com and then type what you want to search, and then you'll only get results from that site. The reason why I don't find this incredibly useful for me personally is I find that if I just add CNN.com to the search without the site parameter, I get very similar results. And it means I don't need to think and I don't need to remember the cite command, if that makes sense. It's just easier for me to just type out the website and not think about it. The other thing that I find really interesting is the tilde. So the tilde is the shift option that's right below escape. And this will give you synonyms of that current word. So the way I like to do this, or if you're searching for like a deal or whatever, you can search iPhone tilde cheap. And that would give you results for cheap iPhones. That would give you results for inexpensive iPhones. That would give you results for sale iPhones. It would take the word that you put the tilde in front of, and it will add all the synonyms of that word to the search result. So this is a good way to kind of expand the search If there are multiple words that can mean the same thing, like a synonym, so you don't have to kind of go through all the results, adding in those different words to see what pops up. And again, on the right-hand side, there are some more options. Advanced search. This is not using any sort of keywords. This is an option in Google, and we'll go over that whenever we kind of go through a search. But it allows you to do things like search for a certain resolution picture. It'll allow you to specify a date range. It will allow you to do a lot of things. The next thing, we had someone emailed Mary before the class and wanted to know how to define words. Google's very useful for that. If you just type in define and then the word you want to define, Google, the first result will define the word. And what I personally like is it has a little button there that you can click on, and then it will pronounce the word for you. I find that because I read a lot whenever I was younger, I know a lot more words, what they mean, than I know how to pronounce them. And I always find it awkward whenever you're in that conversation and you say a word and the person you're talking to repeats the word back to you pronounced differently, and you're like, oh, okay, well, now I don't feel that smart. So I like to avoid that. So occasionally I'll remember, oh, I know what this word means, but I have no idea how to say it. And then I'll go to Google, have it define it, and then click on that button. Another fun thing that you probably have figured out by now about Google is if you get an email with like a tracking code, you can just put that tracking code directly into Google, and it will take you to either, FedEx, DHL, USPS, UPS. It'll take you directly to the website, and it will basically allow you to track your package. You can do the same thing with airplanes. So your flight status, you can just type in your flight number, and it will tell you if it's on time, if it's delayed, what's going on with it. There are so many things that Google search can do. It's kind of daunting. So we'll skip a couple, but one thing I do find very useful is speed test. If in Google search, you just type in speed test, the first result you'll get is an option to do a speed test. A speed test will tell you how fast your internet connection is. So if you feel like your internet is slow, you can just go to Google, type in speed test, and then you can hit the button and it will tell you how fast your internet is. In case anyone's wondering, if you have a speed over 20 megs a second, that's good enough for streaming. So if anyone wants to test that at their house, feel free. And if it's below that, who knows? But it also allows you to check your speed and then, potentially yell at Comcast or whoever your internet service provider is and say, hey, I'm paying you for 250 megs of speed and I'm only getting 20. And then they can say, well, the fine print says up to 250, so we're still within the terms of service. But definitely play around with it. If anyone has any questions on a specific one of these, we can definitely cover it whenever we do the more hands-on searching at the end of the class.
I often use the conversion units when I'm cooking because I like to weigh as opposed to measure by volume. So I will convert 2 cups of flour to how many grams so that I can weigh it. It's much more accurate. It's better for baking. So that's really easy, and I'm happy to have it so available. Okay, here's an example of a search. So the first 2 words, Amazon, Brazil, and there's a lot of results to go through. If I throw in rainforest, Amazon rainforest, Brazil, and you need to understand that Google is assuming an and between each of these words. then it reduces the amount of results. So I'm only getting 21,600,000. If I add Amazon Rainforest Brazil minus Amazon.com, that brings it down to 19 million results. So what I'm doing is saying I want Amazon Rainforest Brazil, and I do not want any results that have Amazon.com in them. The next try is Amazon, and I use a asterisk as a marker so that it could be any other word between Amazon and rainforest. And I have those in quotation marks, and then Brazil, and that brings me, that ups my results to about 20 million. If I just do Amazon rainforest in quotation marks and Brazil, I'm now getting back down to 2,540,000 results. Now, if I put Amazon rainforest, which means it will find those words must be in that, and medicinal plants, I'm down to 42,900. And then finally, if I go to Amazon rainforest Brazil, but not Bolivia medicinal plants, I'm down to 27,400 results. So there's a lot with the tools that Tim just reviewed. There are a lot of ways that you can play with a search to narrow the results that you get, so that it's much more attuned to what you're actually looking for.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Deb has a question.
The question is it searching the title or is it searching the body of the text? Are they finding those words only in the title of the result, or is it anywhere in the text of the result?
I would say that it's in anywhere in the text. Am I correct, Tim?
Yep, it searches absolutely everywhere. One other fun thing is if there is a PDF on a website and that site allows Google to index that PDF, so view it, it will also give you results for the results that are found in the PDF that may be attached to a website. So it will literally search everything. And that's partially why it's kind of useful occasionally to use something like InTitle, which will only search based on the title of a website.
Got it. Thank you.
But that will extremely limit your results. And we just have one question about, did you say the slides will be available? And the answer is yes. If Mary has your email, she will send both the slides and a link to the presentation whenever the class is done.
Exactly.
Tim, can you explain that if a word is in the title, it will get a higher rank than a word that's just anywhere on the page? Is that true?
Yes, that's true. So Google will weight different things more or less. And something that's in the title or in the site name itself, in the URL, will be weighted higher. How that magical formula comes to bear percentages of weight, that I don't know, because Google Google will change its formula, or its formula takes into account what you're more likely to click on based on what you've clicked on in the past. So it will weight titles more, but if you continually click on things that are results that don't have it in the title, then it will start to weigh it less for you, because Google ultimately wants to give you information that you will click on. So it learns a little bit, but yep, titles are more important than bodies.
Okay. So Tim's going to take us on an image search.
Yep. So oftentimes image searching is very useful. One of the fun things to do if you are far younger than me and you are dating online is to double check that the person is who they say they are. So you can take a picture or take a profile picture of someone from a dating site, put it into Google search and make sure it's not like taken from a celebrity kind of thing. So you can match names that way. If you are, my age or older, which I imagine we all are, it's kind of useful for either finding a product or like, for example, if you're into birds or you're into plants, you can take an image that you have taken, put it into Google search, and Google search will find things that are similar to it. So for example, if you take a picture of a plant and you're thinking, I don't know what this is, but I want to, it will then be able to pull up kind of images that are similar so you can get a guesstimate of what that plant or bird is. And you do this by going to images.google.com, clicking on the camera icon, and then dragging an image into the box or uploading a file, or you can paste it directly from a website. Mary, should we do that now or should we do that at the end?
Why don't we do it now, if you don't mind?
Sure. All right. So if we go to Google Images, as you can see, there is a search by image option. This is the little camera icon. You can also search for an image. So we can search for an apple. This apple looks fantastic. I like this apple. View image. It's a very beautiful apple. So we're going to save the image. We're going to save it to the desktop. Snapdragon New. I cannot see the top of the screen. So we're just going to go back. No problem. Go back here. Go to Google. You can also get to search by just going to the normal Google website and then clicking on the search by image option. So right now you can see what we wrote in the slides. We clicked on the camera icon, search any image with Google Lens, drag an image here or upload a file. Oftentimes, if you have multiple monitors or a large monitor, it's easier just to drag it. But to be more selective, we can click on upload a file. We would then have to find the file that we want to search. So we're going to go to desktop, select Snapdragon New, which is the name of the apple. Open. It will then upload the image of the apple and give us results. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we will see our image, and on the right side, we will see the search results. So Google is looking at this and saying, I am looking in this area. You can see by the kind of little quarter circles. And if this is an image you took, you can use these to define where you want it to look. So for example, if there are two faces in a picture or two items, you can drag these corners to make sure you only select the image that, or the part of the image that you want it to search. You can see every time I do that, it will recompile the things on the right-hand side. And we can see that Google thinks this is a Jonna Gold Red, which don't think so. It should be a Snapdragon. But if we go down here, we can see it says Snapdragon, Snapdragon, Snapdragon. So we can kind of figure out, okay, it's probably one of these types of apple. With plants and animals, it's also pretty good. So if we go to Google and we search for a tiger, images, let's see, looking for a majestic tiger here. There we go.
Ooh, scary.
Majestic. All right, that's a still of an image, view image. We're going to try it the other way, which is to copy the image address. So what this means is I have copied this URL. If I go back to Google search and click on the camera icon and I paste the image link, it just means it'll search using that image where I don't have to download the image and then upload it. So we can see on the left-hand side, it has auto-selected the parts of the image that it thinks are important. And it says it's a Sumatran tiger. I'm not really sure what the difference is between that, Bengal tiger, Siberian tiger, and generic tiger. But it's a good way for me to see, okay, it thinks it's this type of tiger, and then I can learn more about that specific breed. And now I just have pictures of tigers. So that's how to do a image search. And again, this is very useful just for finding photos of similar things or figuring out what something is. Any questions about image search? I know I kind of went over that quickly.
Any questions? No, I think we're good. And we'll go back to. All right. So, and there's language. I wanted to talk about language. Language changes over time, but there's also searching in the original language. We anglicize things, and sometimes it's better to search in the original language. So I'm going to show you. Let's see if I can. Oops, sorry. Okay. And oh, sorry. I need to get to. There we go. Okay, so one of the interesting things that was talked about in The Joy of Search with the Daniel Russell book that sort of started this idea of having this program. He came across an article about Civil War, that more people died in the Civil War from diarrhea than from wounds. And so he started to do a little search, and he started to look at the term diarrhea. And when he searched on diarrhea during the Civil War, he got a lot of other terms that came up, and he was starting to, what he wanted to do was see if those terms were specifically used during the period of the Civil War. So there's a great tool for this in Google Books called the Ngram Viewer. One of the terms that he had was, let's see, flux. And you can see, you can set the timing on this. I mean, you could change this from 1800 to say 1900 and just apply it. And you can see that it was very, very popular in the early 1800s, but not so much during the Civil War. So then he would search another term. Let's see, deli belly, that he came across. And this was to find out whether this was and there are no hits in that period of time. So he knows that that's not a term that he needs to use. And I just thought this was really fascinating. Let's do another one. Again, trots becomes much more popular. It starts to become on the rise in just around the Civil War. So that could be a term that you would use.
But how do you know it's not trots like horses trotting trots?
That is something, I know, one of the questions that flux was was problematic because it refers to other things. So let's try this. I don't know if this would work. Oh, that's not gonna help us. Tim, do you have any thoughts about this? Have you ever used the Ngram viewer?
Yeah, so if we try. Nope. Okay, I will be honest, I've never tried using like the advanced search terms
Right, exactly.
in the
I should-
Ngram viewer.
But
Grab
it's-
parentheses. I don't think this is what it means, but I'll try it.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. So, Deb, I really can't speak. I should find out. I will look into that.
Mhm.
One of the searches that he did do that just for amusement's sake, he was looking at names that people call each other. And he put in, you can put in multiple words. And let's make it to. Oh. Fine. And you'll see that coxcomb was very popular in the early 1800s. Nitwit becomes more popular, and then Muppet is probably associated with Sesame Street and comes in much later. But it's sort of fun to look at language like that and to see what we were using, because if you can search on the right term in the historical period, you're going to have better results, especially if you're searching like historical newspapers and things like that. So,
Yeah, I have a question about this.
yeah. Mhm.
So the search typically looks at web pages, I believe, but of course there weren't any web pages in the 1800s. So what is it searching through?
Well, in this case, this is in Google Books. So Google has digitalized, and we'll look at the Google Books website specifically. It's digitalized a lot of historical books, so it's looking at those and looking for hits on it within those books. You could also go to, let's see, I don't know that we will have any luck with this. But let's actually, we'll look at this later on, but we can look at historical newspapers that the library has access to that we've digitalized as well, and we can search for a word in that, and we can look at that a little bit later. Let's go back. And then there is using the original name. I happen to have a French cookie cookbook. And there's a recipe for what is called almond boulders. And that's the English. And you can see that it's bringing up a lot of very, very different search results, including flint, rock, and stone. But if I use the original, Rocher au almond, I am going to get the recipe. I'm going to get images that are very close to what's in the cookbook. So this is another thing just to keep in mind when you're in search. We anglicized a lot of things. Sometimes it's much more effective to go to use the original name in the original language. And then there are a lot of different databases. Sometimes the best way to start a search is to search for the right database that you want to play with. And here are a few to explore. We used to have access to, through EBSCOhost, to a plethora of databases, and unfortunately, the New Hampshire library system does no longer subscribes to those, which is unfortunate. But there are lots of wonderful databases, including we can look at a few of them. There's Google Books, and this basically Google Books, you can read books and magazines, download them, cite them, and translate them. Some of the books are provided by the publishers, where others are scanned as part of the library project. So let's look for Peterborough. And see if it shows up in books. Okay, so now we're looking at, we can see a notation from 1900 and 1901. And just, this is another way to really have a very site-specific search. Another really good one is Google Scholar. It's a freely accessible web search engine that indexes full text or metadata of scholarly literature across an array of publishing formats and disciplines. And it's peer-reviewed. It's online academic journals, books, and conference papers, theses, and dissertations. So that's another, depending on what you're looking for, that would be also a really good database if you're looking for that kind of specific information. One of the ones that you can have access through the library website is the Monadnock Region Newspaper Archives. Okay, let's try that. So we have online the availability to search all of these newspapers from 1840. I think the most recent newspapers that we have available and we're continuing to put online is the Monadnock Ledger, which I think it's actually later than this 2006. So you could, we'll see if there's a swear word that shows up. Ah, yes. So if you wanted to, this is 1976, 1885, but they're not actually talking, they're not talking about, that's not a bad name for something. They're actually talking about the plant, but it's sort of fun to be able to search for a specific word in those historical articles, and then you can just click on it. It will take you to the newspaper. And this is a little awkward, but if you pull down, you will see that the word has been highlighted, so you can find it fairly easily. So then you can read more about that. So that's a great way to search for historical information. There's the Wayback Machine, but I think I'm going to let Tim talk about that. And then for information from medical information, there's Medline Plus and WebMD, both of which are highly regarded and good resources. And then somebody asked about free searches for individuals. The best one that I found was True People Search. It is completely free. It will give you results. It doesn't, give you the search and then say, oh, and sign up if you want to see the results. I searched for my husband, not that I didn't know where he was, And I also searched for myself. I found that the telephone numbers were accurate in one of ours and not in the other, and I won't tell you which one. There's the National Security Archives, which has some interesting information in it as well. And, whoops, sorry. And then this is fun. This is Google Trends. I don't know. Tim, have you ever played with Google Trends?
Yeah, I mean, it gives some interesting looking information, so it's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, this is so, I think this is more just for sort of play than anything else. If you go to trending searches, first of all, we're in the United States, trending searches. You can see what people are searching for. Madonna, 20,000 K. So, and these are, Gina Lola Bridget had died, so people were searching for her. And you can change this by country. And it's sort of interesting to see. So if I go to, let's see what people are searching in Algeria. That's interesting. Let's try another. Australia. So my daughter lives in Australia, so I'm going to find out what she might be searching for. Okay, so the Wolves versus Liverpool. Brett Maher, I don't know who he is, but anyway. And again, Gina Lola Bridget shows up. This is sort of, I found this sort of interesting just to get a sense of, you know, it just an explore. Not, I mean, I'm not sure that it gives you very important information, but it's fun. So in the past 24 hours, this is what people have been searching for. Gives you a sense of what's happening in different countries. And then the other thing that I wanted to add, I added some additional resources. How to do how does search engines work? Because I think it's important for us to understand how they're collecting this information. And this is a short article. And the National Institute of Aging has a really good article on online health information and how to assess the results that you get. And is it reliable or is it not? And then this is an article from LifeWire about niche search engines. And there are more search engines than you can imagine. So these are just a couple of databases and that you can explore, but there are so many. Do you have any favorites, Tim?
I mean, my favorites will generally change based on what Google says should be my favorites for that day. So, you know, I'll do a search of where should I, or how should I search for blah, and then a Google result will pop up and I'll use that one that day. But there aren't any that, like, off the top of my head, I'm particularly wedded to.
Okay. So Tim's going to talk a little bit about cached pages.
Yeah, so cached pages can be incredibly useful for two reasons. One reason is the website is unavailable and you know it has some information that you want to have access to. So you can go there and look at the cached version. If that's what you're looking for, then if you type in cache space and then the website into Google search, Google will actually show you its last cached version of the website. So again, it's useful if a website is down. The second reason why it's sometimes fun to use cached pages are kind of more of a historical nature. Oops. So if we go to archive.org, this is what's considered the Internet Archive. This could be like a full semester class kind of thing of what the Wayback Machine can do and what archive.org can do. But basically, anytime someone says, hey, you should archive it, archive.org says, okay, we will archive it. So for that, because of that, it has tons of old websites, tons of, old books, a lot of old songs, old music, old software that you can kind of search through. The example I find fun are things that you know. So Peterborough Town Library. If we copy this, this is what the library website looks like today. If we go into the Wayback Machine, you can search for keywords, but I like to generally use it for full websites. So we will search. One negative thing with archive.org is it does take a bit of time because basically it has to go into its database, it has to pull up that information, and then it has to be able to display it to you. So on the top part here, we can see years, and then we can see little black kind of pillars, and this shows the amount of times it was archived. So we can basically see prior to 2012, nothing was archived. But 2014, a lot of things were archived. So if we go to 2014, so we'll click on it, we can then scroll down a little bit to their calendars. Every time you see a bold number and a blue circle is when they have an archive for it. So if we click on the 16th, or if we hover over the 16th, we can see there are two snapshots, one at 22:21 and one at 12:41:34. So if there are multiple snapshots, you can select what time you want the snapshot to be. If there's just one snapshot, then if you click on it, you will be taken to just that time, but I'm not going to wait for it to load. So we'll go here. So May 16th, 2014 is the website we're going to go to for the Peterborough Town Library. And again, this is not the fastest process known to man. So we can see that this is what the Peterborough Town Library's website looked like.
Ah, meet the new library director.
Yep. And then up here, you can see a small version of the archives. So you can kind of do a quick click to move to a certain place, a certain point, and it will take a little bit of time and it will zoom you into the future. Slowly, but it'll zoom you there. Don't worry. So now we can see that in 2017, in June, this is what the website looked like. It will take a bit of time for archive.com to load everything. But again, this is what the website looked like. You can see that, we were looking forward to youth summer reading program. We had Rosie's mom, pizza and pages, basic computer class. So you can just kind of play around with old websites. It will only work for websites that allow themselves to be indexed. which is pretty much 99% of websites because it's it's by default, the ability to be indexed is on. But basically you can just play around with the Wayback Machine to look at older versions of websites and search them.
Tim, did you explain how the Wayback Machine determines which versions of those pages to archive?
Yep. So basically it will take user submissions. And then whenever someone submits, or if it's a page that a lot of people visit through the Wayback Machine, it will then periodically and automatically take a snapshot of it. So it's kind of based on individuals. It's not really a set program, but for example, if you go to CNN.com, you will see that there are far more backups. And this is because people want more backups and also people request more backups.
Amazing.
So we can see for 2014, well, we can just see it's been saved over 500,000 times. So there's a lot of information on CNN, not a lot of information on Peterborough Town Library. Sometimes you will see failed to fetch. That will be whenever you're trying to look at a whole bunch of information. The Wayback Machine is publicly supported by donations. It does not have the fastest services available. So you kind of would say, okay, failed to fetch, and then you would just click and try again until it works. But we can see, for example, March 25th, 2014, there were 62 snapshots. Here are all the times it was snapshotted. So we can look at the headlines on March 25th, 2014 at 21:51, which may take a bit. So it is interesting for news sites, just seeing what the news of the day was, you know, what was above the fold.
And Tim, if for example, there's a website that's been archived, but then the business, it goes out of business, will the archive still stay and be available?
Yeah, so the archive is based on, so the archive is held at the Wayback Machine on the Internet Archive. So it's there regardless of
What happens to
the website, regardless to who owns the website. So occasionally you can get weird things where a website domain has changed. But if you're searching for the same domain, you may see that it was a completely different website for a different company or something in the past.
All right. Then, whoops, I did it again. Okay. Wikipedia has a very, very bad reputation. But it's not necessarily, depending on what you're looking for, it can actually provide some really interesting information. And the pages that are most controversial have been shut down so that they can't be edited by individuals. Like the page on Hillary Clinton, for some reason, has been shut down, so people cannot edit it. But I just wanted to show you a couple of things in Wikipedia that I think are pretty interesting. So I did a Wikipedia search for coffee, okay? It was early in the morning, I was working on this, and all I could think about was coffee. It's going to give you the article, it's going to give you an outline of the contents. So we're gonna, if we read the article, we'd see history, biology, processing, economics, social and cultural. So all of that information. Now, if you look at this left-hand side, you'll see languages. This does not mean that this article is translated into a different language. They are actually different articles. And if there's a star by a language, that means that it is an article that the editors feel very strongly, very positive about. So let's look at the article about coffee in German. And the nice thing is that Google will translate it for you. So I got the pop-up window from Google Translate, which is right here. So it's going to translate it into English for me, so I could read it. But what I want you to do is look at the table of contents. It's very different. The information is very different. So if you're looking, it's worth looking at how different cultures approach topics. Coffee is pretty benign, but there are things, different cultures have different things that are important to them, and they focus on that. The effects of coffee, that really wasn't covered in the English article. The other thing I wanted to show you, which I thought was pretty interesting, is if you, among the tools, there's links to this page. So these are other articles in Wikipedia that are linking to this page. And so you can take a look and see if this is a way of building up information that you might have. There's an article about calcium and the various Italian cuisine. That makes sense. Kenya. I was scrolling down and I came across something that I thought was really fascinating to me. And okay, that's it. It's not in this article, it's in the English one. Let's go back to that, what links here. And so I'm scrolling and I'm looking at the displayed items that link to this, and most of them make a lot of sense. But then I was fascinated. Celery. Why would celery link? So I clicked on that. I opened up the article in celery. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article. I just want to find out where this reference to coffee is. So if I do I'm on a PC, so if I do a Control F, I can just search for coffee, and there's only one reference to it, and I will go down to it. And here's some information that I did not know. Celery was so popular in the United States during the 19th century and early 20th century that the New York Public Library's Historical Menu Archive shows that it was the third most popular dish in New York City menus during that time, behind only coffee and tea. In those days, celery cost more than caviar, as it was difficult to cultivate. Who would have thought? I mean, I just think that yes, you can go down rabbit holes, but it's also sort of intriguing to learn and sort of, and this is a very, very easy way to get information. And it's especially if you go to the linked page and then you search for the same search term that you initially used, you can find the reference very, very quickly. So, do you have anything else? Tim, is there anything you'd like to add about Wikipedia?
Yeah, so when I was in college, Wikipedia was just starting to kind of gain ground. So a lot of professors and a lot of colleges basically said you cannot use Wikipedia as a source for information. So of course, all the kids completely ignored that and used Wikipedia as a source for information. But what they did is, if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, so I'll grab that. Down here, you can see references. So these references are generally to official reports or to what would be considered scholarly articles. So basically what you would do is you would go to, the history of coffee and say, or celery, I guess, There's mention of the meadows of violet and wild celery surrounding Calypso's cave. I need that for my article 46. Click down here and I can find that information in this book. So then I would, you know, use that information and I would mark this book in the, I don't know, it's been a while since I've written a paper, but whatever the annotations or whatever the end thing is for one of your papers in the reference section. So if you want scholarly articles on something and you don't really trust Wikipedia, you can still go to Wikipedia and use it to find articles that you may feel are more, you know, more scholarly and more peer reviewed. The other thing that's a lot of fun, personally, is if you have way too much time to kill, you can play the Wikipedia game. The Wikipedia game is where you try and get from article A to article B in as few clicks as possible. And you play this game by clicking on random article, this person, write that down, or you read about them, and then you click on random article. And I would have to try and find my way to the first article by clicking in Wikipedia from here.
Wow.
So for example, this one seems pretty difficult. So I might go to something like Steel that will have a lot of results, and then I'll go through Steel, you know, standard organizations, you know, and I would just go through trying to find the other page. Again, it's not really relevant to the class, but if you have, you know, an hour and you want to learn something, something really, really random, you can always play that game.
I love it. Okay, so now Tim's going to talk about searching on various devices.
All right, I will keep this incredibly short. What device you search on will occasionally give you a different result. For example, if you are using your desktop computer, you will get the most generic search generally available. If you are using your phone, Google will more heavily weight your location, for example. So if you're searching, you know, pizza places on your computer, you will find ones that are, you know, generally in your area. If you search it on your phone, it will kind of try and point you towards the absolute nearest one, as an example. So phones and computers are a little bit different. You can also use your phone assistant or computer assistant to search. The two ones that are the main ones are Siri and Google Assistant. There is also Cortana, which is through Microsoft. Whenever you're using these and home devices, this is where you're generally talking. So you have to search in a little bit. You basically search as if you were typing it out. You just try and make sure that you don't say and very extraneous words. You also want to stop talking for a second after you have done the search, and then give it time to realize that that's the end of your search, and then it will go and search it. And various home devices also have search capabilities. These are the little NSA spy speakers that you can put in your home. And those include Amazon Echo, Google Nest Hub, Apple HomePod Mini, and some others, but those are the main ones. And those are the ones where you basically yell into the void, you know, hey, Alexa, how many grams is 2 cups of flour? And then Alexa will tell you that information without you having to look at your phone while you're trying to bake. So primarily what I use these for is when I'm baking, as Mary said, to get measurements and conversions and stuff like that.
Well, and I was asking my Google Nest about, while I was in the kitchen washing dishes, about the score of the football games that were happening, because I wasn't going to watch them on TV. So, anyway, so does anybody have any questions for either one of us, or searches that they're particularly interested in?
Oh, I remember someone had asked how to get to private.
Mhm.
So this is Google Chrome. In Google Chrome, there is a key combination, but in general, if you click on these three dots and you go to new incognito window and click on it, then you will see this, which is you've gone incognito. And now if you search for airlines or concert tickets or whatever you want to search for, it won't be tied back or based on your main account. So again, three dots, incognito window. Different browsers will call it incognito mode. Other browsers will call it private mode. It's the exact same thing.
How do you rate incognito mode in a browser like Chrome versus an actual browser like DuckDuckGo?
Yeah, so there are two options for DuckDuckGo. You can either use it for search where it's a web page, or you can use the dedicated browser. It's essentially very similar. Whether you trust the one issue I would say is if you're in something like incognito mode or in a DuckDuckGo browser and you sign into something like an Amazon account or a Google account, then you're going to be tracked from that because you've signed into an account on the incognito or private mode browser. But as long as you don't sign into anything, they're all very similar.
Any questions? We've thrown a lot at you.
Okay, I have a question.
Mhm.
How do you eliminate things from your results? Again, so say I, make it very specific, I want to get professional associations that have to do with AI. And I don't want, that's all I want. I don't want anything else. So how do I say, but without machine learning or without something, so that I'm only getting, if I can, exactly the results.
Tim, do you want to, you're probably better than I am. Do you want to show her?
I mean, is it a way of configuring your keywords at the top and then the whatever that squiggly line is? Might be too specific.
Yeah, so the squiggly line is for synonyms.
Oh,
The
synonyms.
minus sign is for taking away a search term or excluding the search term, sorry.
Okay.
So let's just play with that a little bit. So if we did professional,
Like say professional associations do pharmaceutical, but not biotech.
okay. So professional associations, would you put that, how would you run this, Tim? Would you put that in quotation marks?
Yep.
And
So the only issue you run into with quotation marks is if something is called an association of professionals, then it wouldn't find it.
mhm.
But this is kind of one of those situations where you would kind of have to play around with the search a little bit because you're getting fairly specific.
So biotech,
So
not,
say biotech, but not pharmaceutical.
Okay. Is that how you spell
Yeah,
pharmaceutical?
that's one of those.
Okay,
There we go.
so. Okay, but so this is not perfect. How would you narrow this search down? Tim, do you have any thoughts?
Well, for 88,000 results, I wouldn't really be worried about narrowing it down that much. I would kind of, at this point, look at what the results are. and kind of see if any of them based on, the little blurb, makes sense.
Is
So,
there
like,
a
if-
way of ordering the results? Like what's coming up in the first page versus on the 50th page?
So what's coming on the first page it's a combination of what Google thinks these search terms best fit, and also based on how many visits the site has gotten before. So and how many links this site has to other sites. So if a site has multiple other websites linking to it, Google puts that as a more trustworthy, for lack of a better word, site. So it will bump it up. So that's kind of when people are talking about like SEO or search engine optimization. That's one of the things they do. And Google will also base it on how many people visit the site. So on the first page, you're more likely to get sites that a lot of people have gone to. And on the last page, you're going to get sites that technically fit your search terminology, but Google doesn't think are very useful. So one thing that you could use is if you click on tools, anytime, you can basically say like any biotech association that hasn't, that doesn't have anything written about them in the last year, I don't want to be a part of. So it will only give you results from the last year. If you want to go even more into it, you can play around up here with what it's saying. But what I really like to do is go to, it's over here. I do not know why I am blind. I swear it was under more, but if you go to Google's advanced search, you can kind of specify a lot of different things. So all of these words, and then any of these words, none of these words, we don't want pharmaceutical in there. And then language, we're going to go with English. Any region, we generally want to, just stick with the United States. Last update, again, we want stuff within the last year. And we want the terms that we are searching for anywhere in the page. But if you wanted, only organizations that have it in the title of the website, we could do that, or just in the text or the URL, any of that stuff. And then advanced search. So basically, advanced search is a way to, instead of using all of the commands, like you see it redid this. It also redid past year English pages. If we go to advanced search, it allows us to build a search using all those terms without us having to remember them.
Excellent. Thank you. Perfect.
And then I feel like this would be a decent list.
Exactly. Does anybody have any questions for Tim? We're just about ready to wrap up.
I see one question on didn't understand tracking on incognito. So if you are in incognito mode, so let's go to incognito mode. You can browse privately and other people who use this device won't see your activity. Chrome won't save the following information. Your activity still might be visible to websites you visit employer or school, internet service provider. So what this is saying is that right now on this window, you have a fresh slate. Minimal tracking, but any website you visit can start the tracking process again. So for example, if I go into an incognito window, sign into Facebook, and then I start searching for mattresses, well, even though I'm in an incognito window, because I logged into Facebook in that window, that means Facebook then has information on what I'm searching in that incognito window, if that makes sense. So basically you're set in this place with no tracking, but as soon as you start going anywhere online, then the tracking will start. And no matter what your service provider, so for example, Comcast or Verizon or I don't know why I'm misremembering the other one that's local, Consolidated.
Consolidated, yes.
Any information you do online, your internet service provider has access to that, whether you go on an incognito window or not. If you wanted to not be tracked in that way, then that's when you would want to get involved with a VPN.
We could, VPNs are a whole nother class, aren't they?
Yep, they can be.
So we're gonna wrap up now. If you want to, Tim is here most Wednesdays from 12 to 1. If you have a search and you want some help with it, he'd be happy to sit down and walk you through it and play with it. There's just a lot of playing that goes on. You've got to be sort of very agile and try things, and the advanced search in Google is fabulous. And just have fun with it. So thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.